Hello, it's been a while since I tried Suebi, so I figured I'd try a Suebi Sword Rush. I have 4 Germanic Scout Riders to each flank, I have 6 Round Shield Swordmen meat shields, 4 Swordmasters and 3 Berserkers. I picked Suebi and my opponent countered with the Arvaci, so this should be a pretty good barbarian melee brawl. First I'm going to move up into the forest and do a bit of scouting with my Germanic scouts, fittingly enough, to see what I'm up against. I should be able to take this Cantabrian cavalry, but it is too near these Iberian slingers and Balearic slingers for comfort, so I'm just going to pull away, keep my guys wide to see if there's any cavalry coming around. And I don't have any good melee cavalry. These guys can get some kills in melee against against Cantabrian cavalry and against slingers and such, but against dedicated melee troops they will struggle a lot. I'm just using them to screen the enemy army. I see some Celtiberian cavalry, not the best cavalry, but they do have a decent charge and they can do a lot of damage to my units on the charge. I have no good spears to stop them. But I see a lot of skirmishers, some noble fighters, Scutari, fairly standard stuff, painted warriors from the Arvaci here. So the plan is simple, it's to send in the round shield swords first, follow up with the real heavy hitters and the killers, and try to break them with the fair effect from the berserkers and the kills from my swordmasters and the berserkers. So I don't want to get too close here to these Iberian slingers and the Balearic slingers in particular, because they can cause a lot of damage to me. So the round shield swords are going to go in first, act as a sort of meat shield against all of these missiles that I'm going to eat. I don't want to lose any swordmasters. I'm just going to send them right in. I don't have any skirmishing capabilities, so I don't have any time to lose in getting my guys into melee. And these round shield swords are going to disintegrate in the hail of missiles that they're going to be up against. But for some reason the charge isn't happening for my opponent along his lines. He's charging with his painted warriors, but he isn't able to get a good charge off with his other units. He's pulling some Celtiberian cavalry around, and that's potentially very dangerous for me. Getting rear charge can take out a lot of my guys, so I'm going to start firing at them with my Germanic Scout Riders. The same here, I'm going to do damage to this noble cavalry straight away. My round shields are already wavering, but they got some nice kills on the charge there against the Scutari and such. But these units are going to be very problematic. They're going to be able to almost insta-rout my round shield swords, and they're able to do a lot of damage to my berserkers by rear charging them. So I have to take care of these cavalry units so they aren't able to cycle charge. So I'm sending my scout riders to fire at their backs, and they should start to drop fairly quickly from javelins, and they do. Sending a unit of scouts in here to stop this Cantabrian cavalry. I'm also going to send in the other unit to take care of the slingers when the Cantabrian cavalry is dealt with. So the Celtiberian cavalry losing a lot of men here. The Scutari and the are dying, painted warriors are dying in the center here, and these Germanic Scout Riders are going to be able to deal with these Balearic slingers fairly effectively. Still, this is a pretty dangerous situation for me, because I have spears coming in from the rear against these swordmasters, and the Celtiberian cavalry is doing a very good job with cycle charging. Now I am able to pull this Celtiberian cavalry away, and the javelins is going to absolutely destroy it. Noble cavalry is dying as well, and the front line of my opponent is starting to look very thin indeed. Now they are up against berserkers and swordmasters, so that combination is very dangerous for any melee unit to deal with. The noble cavalry is winning because it got a rear charge and is getting a lot of kills here, so I need to get my scouts in to finish off that unit before it can charge again. This unit of Germanic Scout Riders is doing very well in the back lines of my opponent, taking out slinger unit after slinger unit before they can do too much damage. And now the noble cavalry is going down, so things are starting to look a bit better here. Noble cavalry is completely gone. I still have these noble fighters to deal with. The berserkers are going berserk, so that's very good. They're also scaring these Balearic slingers, so they are going to break much quicker than if the berserkers weren't there. getting into the Balearic Slingers, destroying them, and they're going to continue into these Noble Fighters, which is going to be very important. The Iberian Slingers here and the Cantabrian Cavalry is going to get rear charged by my Germanic Scouts, and that's going to be the end of them. So now it's looking pretty good. Going for some rear charges here with my Germanic Scout Riders. These guys aren't really engaged from the front, so it wasn't the best charge from my Germanic Scouts, but it's enough to make them waver because they're attacked in the rear and there are scare units nearby. The Noble Fighters are going down, but only after taking a lot of my Swordmasters down with them. Another rear charge here, but it's not going to be enough to break them since they are winning the fight against these Germanic Scouts. They also have their general nearby, so that's going to help. Now I have to pull back these Germanic Scout Riders because they can't stay in a prolonged melee against Iberian. They're actually just Iberian Spears and Scutari, so Iberian Spears are very poor spear units. But still, they are going to be able to kill quite a few of my Germanic Scout Riders if I'm not careful, and I really need them to hunt down these remaining skirmishers so they aren't able to skirmish me to death. It looks like my opponent forgot his unit of Celtiberian Cavalry over here, so that's good for me. Noble Fighters still going strong and getting a lot of kills against the Berserkers. The Berserkers are dead, but I still have some Swordmaster units left, and I still have my cavalry, so I'll be able to deal with the skirmishers effectively enough. These round shields still alive, going into the Scutari, and they should be able to win here, because the Scutari are wavering. Another charge against Scutari with these Germanic Scout Riders, and that's going to kill quite a few of them. They weren't braced and they were attacked in the rear. Swordmasters getting a good charge off on his Noble Fighters. His Noble Fighters are going to be a problem, of course. The Berserkers are running into the Scutari. They should be able to finish off the Scutari without trouble. They haven't gotten a huge amount of kills, but their scare effect was very valuable in this battle, I think. Stopping these guys from getting any rear charges with my Germanic Scout Riders. And these Germanic Scout Riders have done extremely well, over 200 kills. And over 100 on these guys, so these guys more than paid for themselves. Now there's just this tiny blob of Noble Fighters and Scutari left, and I'll be able to rear charge that blob at will. I have some Berserkers left here, so this battle is definitely going to end in favor of the Germanics. Now I think that one of the main problems here was that my opponent, he went for some very effective rear charges with his cavalry, but that left all of his skirmishers open. So if I had rear charge with just 2 of his cavalry and maybe kept his noble cavalry here so I couldn't have gone for his skirmishers, that would probably have been very effective, and it might actually have won my opponent the game if he hadn't sent all his cavalry away, because then his skirmishers were unsupported and the Iberian Slingers and Balearic Slingers weren't able to get many kills at all. A rear charge is coming here, the army loses, and that's going to be it for this unit of Noble Fighters. And it's a GG. Well played to my opponent, DD. So the Swordmasters did well, the Germanic Scout Riders did extremely well, the round shield swords did their job, they died, the Berserkers scared more units than they killed, which is quite useful. And I really think my opponent would have benefited from just having more of these, let's say 4 Noble Fighters, more Scutari, and bringing missiles against Suebi is a very good idea, but only if you can protect them for long enough. So these Noble Cavalry were a bit of a waste of time. He could have brought 2 Celtiberian Cavalry for 1 unit of those, so maybe he should have done that and protected his skirmishers a bit better. But still, I think it was a good battle. Always like these fast-paced melee engagements. I hope you enjoyed watching it, and I'll see you again on the battlefield.